Earlier today, I noted that we are working, and we'll be working again through the night this evening to pull together the next tranche in our economic supports that can go there to support Australians in jobs and to keep them in jobs and to keep them connected to the companies that will be there on the other side, so they can stand up again and ensure that Australia bounces back strongly, so we can return to life as we knew it at some point in the future once we get to the other side of the virus. I also announced today, over $1 billion in additional support on top of the $3 billion we've already committed to the arrangements for health around the country. So from tomorrow, telehealth, that means you can get a consultation over the phone with your doctor. That starts tomorrow. The Health Minister announced that and went through the details today. Some $200 million in emergency relief going to important not-for-profit and charitable sector organisations like Food Bank and many others that are going to be helping people in great need as this economic crisis hits hard. $150 million to support domestic violence. That includes the work of 1-800 Respect and Men's Line, as we're very aware of the greater stresses that are going on Australian families and households. And that for most, we hope, home where people will be for a lot of time this year, it'll be a safe place, but for many we know it's not. And we need to work to counter that threat to those individuals as well. And $74 million to support mental health. And we're all going to need that help in the months ahead. And that's to support organisations like Lifeline and Kids Helpline and many others. Earlier throughout the day, some 1,600 people went into quarantine as a result of the decisions taken by the National Cabinet on Friday, and I particularly want to congratulate New South Wales, who have done all the heavy lifting on that today, working together with the Australian Border Force and the Australian Defence Forces. That was an extraordinary effort to put that in place from midnight last night, and I congratulate Premier Berejiklian and everyone who has been involved, Commissioner Mick Fuller, the whole team in New South Wales, working so well with us today to ensure we can put those arrangements in place. And to those who may be even watching this now from inside those hotels where you're self-isolating, I know this is a terrible inconvenience for you, but it is necessary to save lives, and we thank you for your cooperation this evening. New technology we've put in place today is going to help us as a country get the messages and information we need to do the right thing to save lives and to save livelihoods. The WhatsApp message service I referred to earlier today has now had 291,000 people go onto that arrangement, and you can get on there by entering into your internet browser oz.gov.au/WhatsApp. Some 1.25 million messages have been sent over the course of today. The coronavirus app, which I mentioned earlier today, is up on the app platform and for Apple app platform and Android, and a new registration feature is now in place on that app. There have been some 482,000 downloads on the coronavirus app today. And I want to encourage every Australian, if you've got a phone, you need the app. Go on there and make sure you download that app and go on the internet browser and get access to that WhatsApp service so you can get the messages you need to support your decisions for you and your family. That coronavirus app has that also that new registration feature about self-isolation. That helps us get information to you and supports the work that we're doing in managing the virus, and I'd encourage you to look at that this evening and register if you please could, and I'd ask media to support us by publicising both the coronavirus app and the WhatsApp message service. Tonight the National Cabinet met to consider a series of issues, and they related principally, firstly, to the issue of public gatherings. Now, you'll be aware of the arrangements that are already in place, that gatherings are currently restricted to 10 persons, except for members of your household, and for the purposes of employment and education, which should also comply with the requirements for working and learning from home and social distancing principles. So up until now, that has been a restriction of 10 people in a gathering, in an outdoor area or in a shopping centre or anything like this. The advice now is that, and I should stress that that 10-person limit, that is enforceable now in most states and territories and can carry very significant on-the-spot fines. That advice has now been strengthened to say that it should be reduced to 2 persons in public spaces and other areas of gathering. States and territories will determine whether they proceed to make this an enforceable limit in the same way that the 10-person limit is already being enforced, but agreed that in all cases this is the strong advice of all states and territories, that unless it's your household, the family, those who are living at your residence, that being with only one other person as a gathering outside is what is required. That provides, importantly, for those who may be getting daily exercise, particularly for women, that they wouldn't be required to walk on their own, and they'd be able to walk with another person. In addition, in public areas, public playgrounds, outside gyms and skate parks will be closed as from tomorrow, and boot camps obviously will be reduced to 2, which doesn't really make it a boot camp, that makes it a private session with your trainer for those who are accessing those services. For individuals, the strong advice that we are endorsing again today as a National Cabinet, and this follows the advice we have been providing, but we felt it was essential to reinforce this tonight. This is the public health advice. You must stay at home except for the following reasons. A, shopping for what you need, food and other essential supplies that enable you to remain at home and to do that shopping as infrequently as possible. B, for medical care or compassionate needs. C, to exercise in compliance with the public gathering rules that I've already outlined. And D, for work and education if you cannot work or learn remotely. Also, we are going further this evening on the basis of the advice that there is strong advice, this is not a compulsion, this is strong advice, that people aged 70 and over should stay at home and self-isolate for their own protection to the maximum extent practicable. They are not self-isolating for the purpose that that our health advice is that they consider they carry or are carriers, but this is for their own protection to limit their interaction with others in the community. This does not mean that they cannot go outside. They can go outside and be accompanied by a support person for the purposes of getting some fresh air, some recreation, but they should limit contact with others as much as possible. These arrangements should also apply to those with chronic illness over 60 and Indigenous persons over the age of 50. Now, the National Cabinet also considered this evening issues relating to commercial tenancies as well as residential tenancies, and they agreed a series of principles which I will release through the statement. The most significant of those is that state and territories will be moving to put a moratorium on evictions of persons as a result of financial distress if they are unable to meet their commitments. And so there will be a moratorium on evictions for the next 6 months under those rental arrangements. Now, there is a lot more work to be done here, and my message to tenants, particularly commercial tenants and commercial landlords, is a very straightforward one. We need you to sit down, talk to each other and work this out about looking at the businesses which have been closed, businesses that may have had a significant reduction in their revenues, and we need landlords and tenants to sit down and come up with arrangements that enable them to get through this crisis. So on the other side, the landlord has a tenant, which is a business that can pay rent, and the business is a business that can re-emerge on the other side of this and be able to go on and employ people on the other side of these arrangements. And we want the banks to help them achieve this outcome. We want people to sit down and work this out. We will be working on measures that will be encouraging you to do just that and to support you to do just that, but also to ensure that if you aren't going to engage in that sort of cooperative activity between banks, between tenants and between landlords, then the sort of support that you might otherwise expect to receive, you will not receive. This is part of the hibernation approach, where we want people, bespoke, customised to their own circumstances, to sit down and work these things out. There's no rule book for this. We are in uncharted territory, but the goal should be shared, and that is a business that can reopen on the other side, not weighed down by excessive debts because of rental arrears, a landlord that has a tenant so they can continue into the future to be able to support the investments that they have made, and banks that have clients, both the landlords and the businesses, the three of them working together to ensure those businesses can get through and be there on the other side. Our message to businesses also, and so many have been doing this, and I congratulate them for their innovation, and that is to rethink your business model. We now have restaurants who are acting through takeaway. Good for them. We have retail businesses that are doing more through their online platforms. We have phone ahead and pick-up type services that are being established that remove the direct contact in retail circumstances. And people, we need to exercise their discretion when they're going into shopping centres and retail supermarkets and things of that nature to be observing the strict rules around social distancing. We're asking businesses to adapt to what is not a usual set of circumstances. They must be sustainable because they will run for, we believe, at least 6 months, and we want to be able to get everybody through. So we are seeking their support. We will have more to say about commercial tenancies in the days ahead. The treasurers of all the states and territories, led by Josh Frydenberg as the federal treasurer, have been working very hard on this. We'll be engaging with business and landlords and banks over the next couple of days to seek to get even stronger provisions in place so they can all sit down and get this sorted. But there's nothing stopping anyone sitting down tomorrow and working out a good deal that sees everybody through. It means everyone's going to have to carry a bit. Now, the government is also will be doing that as we move to our next phase of our economic supports so we can all get through.